Chapter 2. Suppose that to an anthropologist the smallest gesture of a man reveals the soul within him. That is, if anthropologists believe in a soul, which I do not know. I have never met an anthropologist at the races. This mind and body business is too subtle for us Irish to see. We will stupidly go on believing that kindness is not begotten by logic, nor heroism a product of carbohydrates. Assume with me to avoid argument that folk have souls, and I will attempt to show you what is back of our race. Fine words, says the English proverb, butter no bread. But I distrust the ultimate wisdom of a race which evolved that miracle of huck steering. Honesty is the best policy. When gentlefolk meet, compliments are exchanged, say the Chinese. Go many jit, God bless you. Jia is mura git. God and Mary bless you means so infinitely more than how do you do. A giving, loyal people. Even in English, our people saying goodbye to a friend will always add, God bless you. There is no assumption of courtesy, it is there inherent. I know of nothing more dignified than an Aran Islander, than indeed any Irish peasant. When they are young, they are subtle as a larch. When they are old, they have the kindness and sanity of a gnarled apple tree. Always, your trouble is their trouble, and your joys theirs. We are a giving people. Irish servants have a pathetic loyalty. They are often of a carelessness which drives a sane man mad. But no tongue thrashing will affect them. They will say, sure, himself doesn't mean a word of it. He is only a grey day in his heart. The only discipline you can use is to forbear speaking to them for some days. This is torture. Islands' place names have colour and charm. The names folk give to places are an index to their imaginations. In Valladolid and Toledo, in the Rue des Petits Champs, you get names like a bar of music. All names of places meant something to their nominators, even Poltoon comes he come, and Bumbleby by the wash. But what they meant is forgotten. And names are still alive in Irish speech. A derg means the red ford. Aglim, the horse's leap. Enagod, the marsh of sally trees. Ballynegovna, the town of artificers. Ballinho, the town of the mist. Ballintor, the town of the bleaching green. Balclochardalla, the town of the lake of the two swans. Ballydurone, the town between two rivers. Ballykeen, the pheasant townland. Ballynabrugyet, the town of the ale. Bully-nas-Rue Han, the milking place of the little streams. Brehi, the plain of wolves. Benan-Ilra, the remote place of the eagle. Kahin Nam Alat, the fort of cursing. Ka Heepha, the fortress of the fairy piping. Kark Free, the district of the grouse. Karik Agtaha, the rock of the swarming bees. Clogher Culion, the stony place of the holy bushes. Clonman, the meadow of fruit. Kerak Haktork, the moor of the hawk. Derry Nablaha, the oak grove of the blossoms. Drimminowilloon, I'll try that again. Drimminowhelan, the ridge of the seagulls. Gortakraghig, the field of the hanging. Inch Bofin, the meadow of the white cow. Killabrick, the wood of the badger. Mallyree, the little hills of heather. Mon Native, the little bog of rushes. Pol Nuglog, the hole of bells, a deep hole in Clare, where the bells of Drumcliff Abbey are supposed to be buried. Rathnaglee, the fortress of shouting. Scant Namaka, the thicket of the beggars. Scartanor, the thicket of gold. The Danes are supposed to have buried much treasure in it. Slieve Mish, the mountain of phantoms. Tugshini, the house of the fox. Tabor Nag Droa, the well of the Druids. Tullival, the hill of honey. Riniger Hill is a corruption of Fignaxia, or hill of berries. This quick imagination, this apt use of words, follows us into English. Our mountainy people and our folk of the sea still think in Gaelic, though they have forgotten the tongue. How often have I heard people laugh at a countryman who says instead, if it's a thing that, translating the beautiful emphatic conditional of Mars Rudy, if it be a fact, clumsily into English. Our use of prepositions is amazing and subtle. We say, glory be to God. It's the fine day that's in it, ta'in, that it denotes a space of time, a certain space out of the infinite, like a meteorite in the multitude of stars. Possessions are things that are at you. There is no silver at me, a man will say if he's penniless. There you see the dignified human entity with possessions at his feet, but not intermingling with his personality. Any sort of suffering is on us. There you have the entity still absolute, with a load or oppression. Irish bulls often reflect efforts at subtle nuances of speech. Many of our Irish bulls our Saxon neighbours insist on calling them, a result of trying to express quickly a subtle meaning in unaccustomed dress. Many others are at the invention of that rogue and ruffian, the Dublin jaunting car driver. I heard an old Irish groom say at a trial of races, if that colt could catch the other, he'd beat him. Considering that the 2-year-old was 5 lengths behind him at the time, it was surely as ridiculous an assertion as was ever made. Everybody laughed, but I knew what he meant. The 2-year-old had gameness, speed and strength, but did not know how to use them. The boy up could not help him. The statement of Sir Boyle Roche that a man can't be in 2 places at the same time, bearing he's a bird of the air, expresses a great deal, but all it evokes usually is a loud laugh that Oliver Goldsmith knew. Intricacies of Gaelic poetry. The subtlety of Gaelic speech defeats its own ends rather in our poetry. What with alteration, internal rhymes, there are usually 16 rhymes in the Gaelic quatrain. The Irish poem is at work as intricate as chess, and one is rather amused at the artifice that moved by the sentiment. George's Fox translation of the country poem The Country of Mayo gives an idea of the heartbreak underlying most Irish verse. It is a straight and somewhat facile translation. I'm going to give it a go. On the deck of Patrick Lynch's boat I sit in woeful flight. Through my sighing all the lifelong day and weeping all the night, were it not that from my people full of sorrow forth I go, by the blessed sun, 'tis royally I'd sing thy praise, Mayo. 'Tis my grief that Patrick Lachlan is not Earl of Irule still, and that Brian Duff no longer rules as lord upon the hill, and that Colonel Hugh McGrady should be lying dead and low, and I sailing swiftly from the county of Mayo. An anonymous country bard trying his hand in English has got into that tongue hint of the rhyme and rhythm of Gaelic in his weird poem about the Galway races. If there you'd see the jockeys, and they'd mounted on most stately, the pink and blue, the red and green, the emblem of our nation. When the bell was rung for starting, the horses seemed impatient, though they never stood on ground, their speed was so amazing. There was 500,000 people there of all denominations, the Catholic, the Protestant, the Jew, the Presbyterian. There was yet no animosity, no matter what persuasion, but welcome and hospitality, including fresh acquaintance. A hint of the intricate vowel rhyming of the Irish bards is in a beautiful translation by one of our 2 greatest poets, Douglas Hyde. Though riders be thrown in black disgrace, yet I mount for the race of my life with pride. May I keep to the track, may I fall not back, and judge me, O Christ, as I ride my ride. Black despair wails from Irish pipes. Though we have so much pleasant courtesy, yet there are black deaths in us. As anyone who has listened to the Irish elbow pipes know, the harp, with the beautiful airs of the Coolin and the blackthorn bush, and those others with the poetry of Thomas Moore has made known, is nostalgic, yet others have I been thrown to the darkest of despair by the magic of the Irish pipes, the bare, desolate mountains of Connemara rising before me, and a cold wind blowing from the pole. Our pipe is not the Scottish pipe, but a small instrument of many keys played on the knees with the bellows. In the lament for Patrick Sarsfield, as played by old men, the shrill keen is too much for one. And let none think all our stories are of little people, of leprechauns in red caps cobbling small shoes. The most terrible demon in Europe is the Irish Robert artisan, who was the familiar of the dreadful Lady Alice Kitila of Kilkenny, bellest of witches. Our Bank Keitha, woman of wailing, as the banshee is properly called, is not a romantic Irish lie. Neither is it a romantic fact, but a terrible one. The stories of Garrett Oge, young Gerald, 11th Earl of Kildare, called the Wizard Earl, are known to the Fitzgerald family to be full of horror and as fearsome as that mystery of Glenmus Castle. In a house in the Boyne Valley, a skeleton climbs the wall like a huge spider. The Gormantown foxes are too well authenticated to leave any doubt about them. The worst haunted house in the British Isles. The worst haunted house in the British Isles is a certain castle in the heart of Ireland. The place is grim and bare, a square castle of the usual type. The top story of the central tower is the chapel, having evidently served that purpose in time past. Often at night the place seems lit up by innumerable candles, and no member of the family or no servant will enter the room unaccompanied. Of the ghosts, one is a monk with tonsure, who walks in at one window of the chapel and out another. There is also a little old man in a green cutaway coat, knee breeches, and buckled shoes. But the worst ghost in the world is there, the terrible and well-known It. Here is a description of it from the lady of the house. I was standing one evening in the minstrel's gallery, leaning on the balustrade and looking into the hall. I felt suddenly 2 hands laid on my shoulders. I turned around and saw it beside me. It was human in shape and about 4 feet high. The eyes were like 2 black holes in the face, and the whole figure seemed as if it were made of grey cotton wool, while it was accompanied by a most appalling stench, and as would come from a decaying human body. Her health was in the balance for a long time. It has been seen many times. The most recent is a clergyman who sought to lay it. He is in St. John of God's near Dublin, an asylum for the wrecked in mine. These are facts, not to be gainsaid. The Reverend St. John Seymour, as level-headed a cleric as exists, and former Inspector Nelligan of the Royal Irish Constabulary are my authorities.